Step away from the car. Now, the words sliced through the afternoon like a blade sharp enough to turn heads, sharp enough to freeze conversation mid-sentence. Shopping carts rattled to a stop. A smoothie straw paused halfway to someone's mouth. And there she was, Alana Brooks' hands resting calmly on the hood of a classic '68 Camaro her late father had restored bolt by bolt. That car wasn't just metal and paint. It was memory legacy, his fingerprints still hidden in the seams. And yet to one cop, it was nothing but stolen property. Officer Brian Keller stood wide-legged, thumb hovering close to his holster like a reflex. He scanned her up and down, a black woman in her 40s, blazer jeans flats. Calm. Too calm. He didn't like that. This vehicle matches the description of a stolen car. License, registration now. And maybe tell me how you ended up driving something worth more than I make in 5 years. His voice was loud on purpose, pitched so the crowd gatherings could hear every word. Alana didn't flinch, didn't argue. She blinked once and that was it. The silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. But Keller, he saw silence as defiance. Phones lifted, live streams began. A college kid in the crowd whispered into her mic, "This is going down right now." Black woman, vintage Camaro cop already has his hand near the gun. Somebody needs to call somebody. Within minutes, hundreds of viewers turned to thousands. Keller circled the car like a predator testing the cage. "You got papers in here hiding something, ma'am." His eyes darted to the leather case on the passenger seat, where a corner of a gold-embossed seal peeked out. He smirked. "What are you, a lawyer, Supreme Court, maybe CIA? Or you just think you own half this mall?" He chuckled, cruel and quick. Alana's voice finally came low and steady. "Don't touch anything in my car. There are confidential documents inside." That tone, it didn't match the script he'd written for her. He barked into his radio, "Dispatch suspect is non-compliant. Requesting backup. Situation escalating. Non-compliant." The word ricocheted off every ear in the crowd. They knew what that word meant. In reports, it rewrote the truth. An older woman tried to step forward, her voice trembling with rage more than fear. "Officer, that's not—" "Step back, ma'am. Active investigation." Keller didn't even look at her. But the woman whispered anyway, "I know those eyes. I know that face." Alana's phone buzzed in her pocket. A reminder, emergency session vote. Her presence was needed. Without her, the bill on police oversight would tip the other way. She wasn't just being delayed, she was being silenced. And still she waited. Because her father had taught her wait until the moment truth cuts deeper than anger. Keller puffed out his chest, leaning close enough to catch the scent of her eucalyptus lotion. "Start talking, or I'll escalate this." "You already are," she murmured. That line alone shifted the air. The crowd sensed it. His mask cracked just for a second. Then the sirens wailed back up, closing in. By now, 10,000 people were glued to their phones, and then 20,000. The numbers kept climbing. Alana's gaze didn't leave the windshield. She remembered riding shotgun as a girl while her father quoted Langston Hughes in traffic, his hand always resting on the wheel and on her understanding of the world. He'd told her once, "If you ever wear the robe, don't forget what it's like to stand on the other side of the bench." She hadn't forgotten. Not then, not now. Keller's radio crackled. "Be advised, Judge Alana Brooks is unaccounted for from the emergency judicial session. Possible detainment." The crowd gasped. "Judge, did they say?" Judge Alana finally turned to face him fully. "Officer Keller," she said, reading his badge like a verdict. "Do you know exactly who you've just tried to arrest?" He blinked, suddenly pale. "What?" The older woman shoved through the crowd, her phone held high. On the screen, a photo of Alana in a black robe, her father's hand on her shoulder the day she was sworn in. "That's her," the woman said firmly. "Judge Brooks, Superior Court." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that shifts the earth. Keller's smirk evaporated. The bravado drained, leaving only the faint twitch of panic. Alana reached into her case, slow, deliberate. She pulled out her judicial ID. My name is Judge Alana Brooks, Superior Court Criminal Division. 15 years on the bench. Daughter of Judge Harold Brooks, who drove this car every day for 20 years. I inherited both his car and his belief in justice. The crowd erupted, cheers, shouts, disbelief. The live stream hit 50,000, but Alana wasn't done. She opened another folder, vehicle registration, notarized, stamped, her name printed clear. Then she held up the final file, confidential judicial review. Inside are recommendations for disciplinary hearings on officers statewide. One of those names is his. She looked Keller dead in the eyes. You were on the docket today. Your file. 18 internal complaints, 2 federal settlements. Excessive force, racial targeting. Today's vote would have decided whether you face permanent removal, and you tried to handcuff the woman deciding your future. His lips parted, but no words came out. The crowd didn't need words, they roared. Phones shook with energy. Reporters swarmed. Keller stammered, I didn't know who you were. That's the point, Alana shot back. You thought not knowing gave you the right to assume everything. A Latina officer stepped in, her body cam rolling. Ma'am, on behalf of the department, No, Alana interrupted, her voice still calm. You can't apologize for a system by calling it a mistake. You fix it by admitting it worked exactly as designed. Then she laid out his choices, her voice sharp as a gavel, but never raised. Option 1, face federal prosecution for violation of my civil rights. Option 2, accept demotion, undergo bias training, testify before the state assembly as a case study in racial profiling. Option 3, resign immediately, keep your pension, disappear from law enforcement forever. Keller's knees buckled. The crowd held his breath. Cameras zoomed in. The man who moments earlier swaggered with power now looked like a boy lost in a storm. I'll take option 2. His voice cracked thin and hoarse. Alana nodded once. Your choice is noted. The badge and gun came off. The crowd didn't cheer. They watched in stunned silence as authority dissolved before their eyes. It wasn't victory. It was exposure. Moments later, the police commissioner arrived. No excuses, no spin. He shook Alana's hand. Judge Brooks, we're here to listen. And right there in the middle of a mall parking lot, policy was written on a folding table, mandatory body cams with no off switch, quarterly bias training, led by community leaders, a permanent oversight board with subpoena power and data transparency on every stop. Alana signed first, then the commissioner, then the sergeant, then Poetic Justice Amara, the college student who had live-streamed the whole thing. Nearly 100,000 people watched her pen hit the page. This, she whispered through tears, is how change looks. That night, news stations replayed the footage. In classrooms and academies and community centers, people dissected it frame by frame. Keller's name became shorthand for both failure and accountability. Months later, he sat before Congress, stripped of arrogance, testifying to the cost of his own prejudice. I assumed her car was stolen because she was black, alone, and driving something I thought she shouldn't. She never raised her voice. She held up a mirror. That moment ended my career, but began my accountability. His words helped push through a national policing reform bill. But Alana, she didn't chase fame. She launched the Harold Brooks Foundation, funding scholarships for young black law students. Every Saturday, she still drove the Camaro downtown, parked it outside the courthouse. A reminder that justice doesn't live in robes or titles. It lives in whether the system recognizes you without them. When a young paralegal once asked her why she drove that car so often, she smiled softly. Because people need to remember, justice isn't something given. It's something you take back over and over again. And maybe that's the part that unsettled Keller the most. She didn't need to raise her voice, didn't need to shout. She stood so firm that the system itself had to lower its voice instead. So now here's the question for you. If a woman like Alana had to fight for dignity in a parking lot, what does that say about how far justice really stretches in our everyday lives? Was Keller just one bad cop or proof of something bigger? Drop your thoughts into the comments. Share your own stories because silence only protects the system when we let it. And today we don't.